Right, so tell me something about Jess Shaw.
Well, I'm obviously the newly elected member for Swan Hills and 10 months or 11 months in now, and I'm absolutely loving it. I am a migrant originally, daughter of a bricklayer and a stay-at-home mum. We moved to Sydney first, I then lived in Canberra, then back to the UK for a year and here in WA. So I've been living in Swan Hills for the last 12 years, I love it. First in Chidlow, now in Mount Helena. And yeah, I guess I've had a bit of a checkered career. I've been in foreign affairs, in academia, in the public service, in private sector, and now I've made the move into politics, and I just love it. It's fantastic. And I love where I live, I love my community, I'm very committed to my family. I think as a migrant, having a very strong, closely knit family becomes very important to you, and they're certainly a great source of support and strength. And I guess I think I've got the best job in the world, and I absolutely love it. I tell you, I wake up every day energised and enthused about this career path I've now chosen for myself.
Jess, as the first person in your immediate family to finish high school, you've gone on to pick up 4 university degrees. What is it about studying?
I just love learning, and it's actually one of the things I love about this job. I think you're just presented with so many opportunities to learn about what's going on in your community, to get across a whole range of different statewide issues. And the academia, I guess my academic career was all about just a thirst for learning. And I did want to go, when I went to Cambridge, it was also like living in Hogwarts for a year. So that was a real experience. That was a little goal that I'd sort of set for myself, being the first person in my family to even finish school, and from a really working class part of England. I would never have had the opportunity to do that, and so it was a little goal that I set for myself, and because of the education I had here, it sort of unlocked those doors and gave me that opportunity, so I was going to take it.
So we might get onto Hogwarts in a minute, Hermione, but for the record, what are your 4 university degrees and where from?
Okay, well, I did a law arts degree at University of Wollongong. I did my honours thesis in my law degree on the European Union and the application of the principle of subsidiarity, which was kind of a constitutional law type issue, which it was fascinating.
That was before Brexit?
It was before Brexit, but I tell you what, the funny thing is, I think the seeds of Brexit were being sown in those days. It's a really interesting
Not by you,
topic.
but at the
No. So, and in my arts degree at Wollongong, I did a politics major, and I guess that's where my interest in politics came from. I then went down to ANU to do a 12-week internship to finish off those degrees. And while I was down there, ANU offered me a tutoring position in one of the colleges there, and a scholarship to go and do another arts program. So I did that and did my thesis there on the British government's decision to go to war in Iraq. And at that stage, I was also working for the British High Commission as the political attaché. So it was a really fascinating time to be working in foreign affairs, writing a thesis on it. I got to interview Jack Straw, who was the Foreign Secretary, and Jeff Hoon, who was the Defence Secretary. Got to talk to those guys.
Era.
It was fascinating, and my thesis was on the third way and on whether Tony Blair's third way in international relations was consistent with the decision to go to war in Iraq. So that was fascinating, and I guess I was carrying the bag to an awful lot of interesting meetings around that time, and so I reached the point with the British Foreign Service where I guess as a locally engaged employee I'd gone as far as I could, and an opportunity came up for an advisor or a researcher on the Senate Foreign Affairs Defence and Trade Committee. So I went and worked on the Senate Foreign Affairs Committee, and we did some fascinating stuff. So we did the military justice inquiry, Australia's relationship with China. It was around the time of the US Free Trade Agreement and the defection of Chen Yonling and the detention of Cornelia Rao. Like, there were all these really interesting, I didn't work on all of those inquiries, but there were just some really interesting issues swimming around my committee. And so it was a fascinating time to be working there. But then all of a sudden, John Howard got the control of the Senate. And so all this accountability work, children overboard, like all these great things that the Senate had been working on, all of a sudden fell away because the government controlled the Senate and shut the committee system down, and I got really annoyed about that, and I got so angry about it that I thought, I'm going to go and write another thesis. So I applied to go to Cambridge, and I went over to Cambridge University, and I wrote my thesis there for my master's in law, again on a constitutional law issue, on the ability of legislatures to hold executives to account. And I was lucky because I'd worked in the Senate. I obviously had a bit of visibility to how that committee system operated. But then I had the benefit of also Harry Evans, the clerk of the Senate, helped me have some time in the Westminster Parliament, and also I went up to the Scottish Parliament. So I saw how 3 different parliaments dealt with in Westminster systems, executive accountability. And so that was a really fascinating process to go through, and I wrote my thesis particularly on the estimates function and how it operates. And I finished that, and my parents in the meantime had moved to Western Australia, and when I was coming to the end of my studies, my mum kind of put her foot down and said, come on, it's time to live in Perth. I think I needed to go away and do that year. Prior to that time, my mum had had cancer, and I'd spent quite a bit of time looking after her, and then she actually moved with my dad to Western Australia when I went to Canberra. And I think having that sort of 5 years apart, that you need to go away and do that, but then I missed my family, and they're incredibly important to me. And I'd always come to Perth right since I was a kid, because my extended family all migrated here. Had always come to Perth for Christmas holidays, always loved it, and I thought, well, I'll give it a go. And so in 2006 I moved here, and I haven't really looked back. It's been great.